thank you for taking some time to chat with us today. It's a real thrill for us.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very honored to be able to do that. I understand you're a musician yourself as well, and a composer, right?
I am indeed.
Very good.
All right. Okay, that's a good start, right? So we have an exciting new release from you, Map, of course, which is a collaboration with drummer Greg Alban and some very interesting, diverse guests, including John Avila from Oingo Boingo. How did you go about choosing these musicians for this project?
I had recorded actually three numbers, three titles for my time code album exactly 30 years ago. That was recorded at the record plant in Los Angeles, but I had discovered those guys actually in a club while I was still, of course, a member of the Moody Blues at the time. We had a few days off in LA, and I had known Greg Alban a few years even before, but then one night I was invited to that club in Manhattan Beach, and there was a group called Ice playing, and he was on drums, and John Avila was on bass. He was just kind of a top 40, the really hard rock top 40 type of band, and I was very impressed by the rhythm section. And I asked them if they would join me in the studio to record 3-piece for my time code album. And, they did really an excellent job. I was really, really very impressed with their playing and their behavior in the studio. I think that was their first gig in a very big and known studio at the time. And we had an excellent engineer, Lee DiCarlo, for those specific 3 numbers. And then we always stayed in contact over the years, and I've been living in Los Angeles for many years also, but I was always extremely busy. Greg, I understand, was always busy and so on. And one day, some time ago, he called me and asked me if I wanted to compose some music for him to play with me, and maybe with John and maybe some other musicians. So, I composed about 14 pieces for to choose from, and we acquainted again. I mean, I traveled to Los Angeles many times, and we went to the studio. I had composed already the bulk, of course, of the material, and then it was like flowing, it was like a decision to take the musicians we had, like Lenny Castro and Dave Van Sach, and I had a very good friend also in Switzerland, fantastic bass player Patrick Perrier, whom I've already recorded, the material for 2 CDs there in Switzerland, because I've got another group there,
Oh.
And, that's how it came. I mean, John Avila was also found some time, to record with us. I mean, when people have to gather, even through the United States, and be on time at the same time in the studio, it's not always that easy. Although we've done, of course, some of the recordings via the internet, like I do quite regularly with other producers.
It's a wonderful thing, the internet. The old days, if you wanted to collaborate with someone, the only way to do it was to get on a plane and go to wherever. Now, you can collaborate with somebody in Europe or Asia, simply by exchanging files. It's really quite amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
Hopefully we'll be able to record that quite in a not too distant future. But I've got also some other projects in the pipeline, and some with some very, very interesting transcultural percussion from all over the world, from Africa and so on. And I've been to so many. I was privileged to be able to go to so many countries you know, and I've been like 53 times to Africa, and I've had a lot of contacts with some fantastic percussionists from different countries, you know.
So how does a keyboard player such as yourself have such a fascination with percussion?
Well, I mean,
right?
the rhythm's the basis of communication anyway. From you know, century. I mean, millenniums. I mean, you know, from the start of the universe. I mean, rhythm is there's no machinery. There's no art without some kind of a rhythm. And since it's the basis of communication, communication is the basis of life, really.
Absolutely.
And, you know, it's a very, very kind of basic feeling, you know, more even than an understanding, you know. And I think the musicians who are able to have that kind of intrinsic rhythm in their organisms are really probably have the chance to become really great musicians and communicate with everybody.
Oh. And the album is a beautiful album, by the way. I just want to compliment you on it. And it seems, what I love about it is that it seems to successfully blend like all the different styles of these very individual musicians that are on it, especially you know, in the bass, and you know, there's some very distinctive sounds, like for example from John Avila, that really pulse through, you know, and it's very, very interesting in the overall mix of things. But for me, the cut that really stands out is the last cut on the album, which is Alien Species. And the song, it moves like a beautiful meditation. It's so deeply textured and tranquil. Can you talk a little bit about how that piece was composed?
Well, that's the beauty of having, you know, that's the beauty of having at my disposal some instruments and some keyboards and some sounds that I've been developing over the years. I mean, there's nothing really, it's really not complex at all, and that's why I wanted to make it flowing like that. And I think Greg Alban did a very good job with this cymbal. He only plays cymbals.
Yes.
In this piece. And also, I was very fortunate to have been able to keep a fantastic instrument, which is the VL1 from Yamaha. You know, it's a synthesizer of you know, very special. It's kind of monophonic synthesizer, which I've developed some samples for, and you know, I was able to do this very long clouds of chords, very simple kind of chords. But what I like is that, for example, there's this transition, I think after maybe 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes, and I was really immersed in my mind, you know, immersed in some kind of a parallel universe when I did that. And you know, I was completely straight. I've got to tell you that also. But you know, I was like in a parallel universe in my mind. I mean, I think I've composed that with my eyes closed. You know?
Yes. It's a beautiful piece. It really is. And, you know, it's funny too. I noticed at least 3 of the cuts on the album make reference to aliens. Was this was this intentional, or is this just something that you know, have some sort of a fascination with?
Well, I have a fascination, of course, for everything extraterrestrial, potentially, and you know, I'm always fascinated by the universe. One of my very, very good, since I was a kid, you know, one of my very best friends, actually, my buddy from the same desk in school in Switzerland, became actually the first European person to become an astronaut for NASA and to go on Endeavour to repair the Hubble Space Telescope 4 times in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
You know? And when we were kids, also my cousin, one of my cousins, Michel Mayor, was also is the astrophysicist who is the first ever astrophysicist to have discovered the first extrasolar planet, Pegasi 51b. And when we were kids, I remember we used to go, not even in our teens, but before that, we used to go around in the mountains, around Switzerland, around the lake of Le Mans and so on, and in even some area of mountains called the Pleiades, and his father was a very, very pointed kind of scientist, and he had some Geiger counters with machines, all machines to measure, levels of potentially uranium, and in the mountains. And we used to go and do some explorations, and then sometimes we used to camp at night and look at the stars, and that's how it developed. So I mean, for me, also, I mean, the word alien is no stranger to my vocabulary, because I'm personally, funny enough, I'm personally a registered alien. It's actually written on my green card. I mean, which is not green, of course, but it's funny that I use the word alien, and I love everything to do with that kind of word, and I've even been able to develop or to reserve a couple of names on the internet through one of those networks where you get some names, and to the .com and .net and so on. And I've got one which is called alienintelligence.net.
I'll have to visit that.
I don't know even what I'm going to do with it, but I thought it was funny to be able to do that, and...
you know what? I'm right there with you. So I share that enthusiasm.